Are you guys chasing trends and what's happened pre and post pandemic and all of that? That was like one of the things that I noticed after we closed up. Everybody had to close up for a little bit and open back up. And the one thing that I noticed, besides my daughter calling at the absolute worst time, was that everyone was cooped up, and especially with the millennials, they're shopping and they find a great bookcase on that little feed on Facebook or wherever, and they buy it. And then finally the pandemic lifts and they realize that the algorithm has sent that same thing to all of their friends, and they've bought it too. And so what I'm getting a lot more of after we opened up is millennials that will run through looking for what I call looking for soul, looking for something that doesn't look exactly like their girlfriend's place. And that has always been a trend that was very different, where previous generations were looking for things to individualize themselves. Millennials oftentimes can't make a purchase until they stare at their phone for 20 minutes and try and find 200 likes on the same piece. Right. Now I'm finding them go break back out and go, no, I cannot walk into the same house. So I like to think this shop is a place where they can come and just find something that's a little bit different.
Well, it's when everybody wants to see something.
Yeah.
Like, well, what's that going to look like on the sofa? Well, trust me, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
But that's a challenge, I think, nowadays, because you can do that in certain realms of the industry, but as soon as you get to a certain price point, that's just not going to be, we're not going to digitally put that print on that sofa so you can see what it looks like. And you just have to trust that this is, we're picking the right thing here.
I think with modern day buying, we can all buy so much on the phone and we have 30 days to return it. You can't make your life Zappos. Sometimes things are just tactile. Sometimes you have to be in front of it and you have to feel it, or you have to see it in the natural light or see it in your home's light. And if you can't just keep ordering it and letting it come to the door and be happy with it. Everything looks great on a picture. I can make this look really good in the right lighting, enough to have somebody want to buy it. But once you get it, you're like, it's a piece of plastic. It's a nothing.
A great way to describe what we are trying to bring back into the homes again, instead of everything looking like some put together matchy, because that was,
And I kind of think that we're going to see minimalism kind of fade away. After people sat in their home and looked at blank walls and blank surfaces and sterile surfaces, they want some personality. They want to see things that make them smile or make them feel warm and comfortable or whatever, which people were taking out of their homes for so long, and now I think they realized, oh my God, I have nothing to look at. Everything's blank.
It's white.
Yeah.
Black.
Also, I think that it's the maturity of millennials. They were very nomadic out of college. They're waiting for their first job where they could actually afford good things. But a lot of it was traveling and so nobody wanted to put roots down. Now they want to put roots down. Now they want to make it, the soul of it. The homey, remembering what grandma's house felt like, maybe without the knickknacks.
Right.
And
or knickknacks that speak to them.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Because that is something. The one thing that I've seen, especially off the hill, as older families leave, and they had that. There was that group of designers back in the day. Jerry Lamb has to be one of the first names that you say. Mirza Dickel, Peter Sargent, Robert Trotman, all of these, and Robert's still out there doing it. And but there was more. I don't want to say a theme, but I could almost guess when somebody would call and say, okay, we've been on the hill for 40 years. This is what I have to consign or whatever. I know exactly what it is. You've got English or American-based furniture. You have McGuire as your tweener, and then you have a lot of Asian accessories. And they're like, how did you know? because 80% of the houses on the hill have that exact thing. And so now, I am seeing like the minimalism, or it went from then pushed more towards the mid-century.
Right.
And then, but the problem was it went too far. It became all mid-century, and some of it was just crap. Some of it was just stuff that came over. Teak furniture from Holland doesn't make it mid-century.
And you have IKEA making pieces that look mid-century.
Exactly.
So
Exactly.
once it goes to IKEA, you know it's out.
Exactly. And so if you don't see and you know, they didn't know the difference between a Knoll Saarinen table, a good one from 1956, and the tulip-shaped table that they got from IKEA for $9.95. Thinking they're making a good investment because the other one that's on my phone says it's worth $4,500. Well, there's a difference, and so you see a lot of they're learning as they're going along. But I definitely see minimalism. Maybe I'm seeing a lot more just contrast where they're saying, okay, maybe we're going to stick with our modern stuff, but maybe it's a little something that has personality and then a contrasting older piece. That goes, you know, something to draw the eye
right through antiques and
yeah, of course.
Architecture.
I was in Palm Springs 2 weeks ago, and one of the houses that we looked at was an Albert Frey house, and that he featured a wonderful 19th century sideboard, and all great mid-century. And so, yeah, I see it all the time. So, anyways, do you guys want to look around, or
Yeah.
Right. That's interestingly enough, that one's come back in for consignment. It was one of the first things I bought when I went to Europe for my first 40-foot container. Yeah. I just
They
thought
put
it was
like
wonderful.
a silk on the back, huh?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh, and then the base too.
And I actually remember putting the lights in just for display, and it used to have wood shelves.
Well, it must have had different hardware because this doesn't line up, and it's
Right.
obviously a little
Because they
small.
shrink with age, and
Yeah.
so we all. There's a piece that I like. 19th century, early 19th century. Excellent carving, really well done water gilt, and then it has it's deteriorating, but it'll survive another 100 years. But it is this just really wonderfully detailed, romantic painting done underneath.
Does it have a glass over it?
Yeah.
From this side, I'm
And if it
getting
didn't have the
there.
glass over
It
it,
would really-
it would have been destroyed.
Okay.
I've got a few
Is
more
there a-
pieces to put on it.
Is there a local person that can do restorative?
That's a great question. But you know, the restoration work, all of those people, they're old, and or the good ones are out there. You know, if with something like that with gilt, there's nobody better than Nancy Thorne. I don't know if she's still doing
She's
it.
retired.
There you
But
go.
Bradley took over.
Okay, and so there.
And he trained under her.
Oh, he did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we just lost. You know, Stephen Harvey moved to France from the Cultured Pearl.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Harvey was a real
Right.
talent.
Right.
And I remember, like I knew Harvey back in the early '80s when they were renting literally a storage shed. I ran Portland Antique Company for 16 years, and they rented the storage shed up on the top of the building on 13th, and he would do all of his restoration there. People thought he was going home to some elaborate studio. He was actually just going up to where they used to keep the lawnmower and stuff, and was in the shed doing that. And I'd just hang out at lunch and watch him do his thing. Picked up, you know, in this business, you guys steal from each other, I'm sure.
Never.
And I would just figure out what his little tricks were and what it was. And, you know, the only thing he would say to me is, if you tell anybody how I did this, I'm going to kill you. And so, but it
You're
helped.
still living.
Right. So I just didn't tell anybody, but it helps when a good painting comes in, but it's got a pucker, and they've been quoted $1,200 to fix it. And I know, I won't tell you how I do it, but I know I can have it up and back up on the road in an hour.
What have you seen come in since COVID? Have you seen something that you haven't seen in a while? Like something that you hadn't seen in a while, a flow of, and now all of a sudden there's another flow of
A
it?
lot of Asian that's come through. What I'm getting pre-COVID, post-COVID is that what I'm constantly trying to make sure that people understand. I said this before, and I'm not kidding. I'll beat this to death. But I spend half my day giving good people bad news. That's too expensive. That's not good enough. That's unrealistic. It's wonderful. Sometimes you get people calling saying, "How much do you think I could get for this?" And then I never hear from them again because they're trying to market it themselves. They were just too lazy to do their work. Now what I'm seeing, the trend is that after COVID, people oftentimes that were so steadfast on saying, no, I want $800 in my pocket for whatever this chair is. And I look at it and go, the market doesn't bear more than like $650 for it, and you're going to pay me for my services.
Right.
So let's be realistic. And then they are sure that I'm wrong. Then they leave and they try and hit everybody else, and then they come back and go, all right, $695. And so we'll see a lot of that in terms of what are they trying to off old things. And so I just see just like a lot of discarded, unwanted stuff in that respect, and the market is flooded with it, so I have to be super selective as to what comes in. French furniture, the old Renaissance, the 15th, some of the 16th stuff, that seems to be on the rise. English furniture, period stuff. The one that's dead, like if you guys are paying premium for Victorian up to 1920s, you're not doing your clients a service. They're almost giving it away. That's what they're trying to get rid of. Arts and crafts is good and really strong, but like English, Georgian furniture up to the Regency period, just pre-Victorian, is hot and seems to be moving up. Then into arts and crafts, true deco, not just the cardboardy kind of deco, seems to be good. Seems to be that tweener that still goes with the good mid-century, that goes into the simple line stuff. And then contemporary. I'm actually selling a lot of contemporary stuff. So many people that will walk through the door or give me a submission, and then they'll put an appraisal on my face and say, I've got a $4,500 Haris that I was guaranteed. And I'm like, that I was going to appreciate. And where is that person now?
Yeah.
He's selling cars in Tacoma.
Yeah.
He's not. It's nonsense. There was a run of about 75 years that if you bought something smart at a smart level, you can use it, abuse it, and probably sell it for a profit.
Yeah.
Didn't matter what it was.
Yeah.
There was a market back in the 80s and the 90s when everything was available, and there was always somebody out there to buy it. Maybe not today, but it will sell. And now those same people said, well, geez, if my rug that I inherited in 1975 with an appraisal of $4,500 on it, they only paid $500 for it. Let's do the math. Oh my gosh, when I'm ready to sell it in the 90s, it's going to be a $10,000 rug.
Yeah.
Not realizing you can get it on eBay for $695.
Yeah.
And so I get a lot of that kind of stuff, and they're just shocked. They don't believe it, and then they have to come back and go, okay, we've checked.
Yeah.
You're right. So that is the one good thing about the internet, is that all the information is there. And I just go by the premise that nothing is worth anything unless you can sell it. The best stuff always stays current and relevant in terms of a price line. The good, like the table that's sitting right behind here, a real Saarinen table, it may dip in popularity, but it will never dip in value. But if you buy an IKEA look-alike, it's literally, you pay as much as you paid for a Saarinen table, and it's worth nothing when you're ready to sell it, because there's, it's one of 200,000 that they made, or they wouldn't have marketed them through Amazon. You guys want to keep walking, or?
Yeah, I have one more question. It sounds like Victorian is the answer, but is there any particular style that you get offered that you know the quality is really good, but you just feel like it's not going to work for you to do?
Late Victorian, Eastlake, that transitional Eastlake into arts and crafts. It was mass-produced furniture. Yeah. It's beautiful. It's actually more comfortable than most things. If you notice, there's not going to be an old sofa in this store. I can't have it. It feels like we're all at church. And, it's just punitive. Everything's 90 degrees. But in terms of the actual furniture, the quality and all of that, Eastlake is the best made stuff. It lasts forever and nobody wants it.
Yeah.
It's really weird that way. And that'll probably flip, but not right now. That's the one thing when they tell me I have an old Victorian X.
Yeah.
You already have 2 strikes, so hit me with something I haven't seen.
Yeah.
There have been exceptions. I've got stuff in here in the store that are exceptions to it, but most part, that's it.
Biedermeier's still good?
Biedermeier's the best. I got a wonderful Biedermeier chest coming in.
I just saw a beautiful sofa on Facebook Marketplace the other day for $1,600 that was just amazing.
Yeah.
A beautiful piece.
Yeah.
And I mean, I didn't have a use for it. I don't have room to store it.
Oh my gosh! One of the things that have been super popular since COVID and everyone's opened back up, barware. I can sell barware all day, every day, and that's like it's everyone's 6 o'clock drinking has become 4 o'clock, and everyone wants a cute gift, and that cute gift becomes how about a decanter? You guys haven't been back here.
So do you get actual young people shopping
Sure.
glassware?
Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a hard thing. It's a hard thing to figure out what millennials are, what they really want, because they don't really know themselves. Right.
Yeah.
That's they're almost studying it. And I'm finding like this iteration of designers are like they're almost like confidence guides.
Mhm.
Like it's okay
It's
to want
okay
something,
to like something that.
and it's not because your friend doesn't have that.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah.
And I see a lot of that where they're just kind of advising.
I think you make a good point about the stopping of the travel so much, because I think a lot of millennial identity was where have I been?
Yes.
Where have I gone?
Yes.
What weird experience did I have?
Right.
And devoid of that,
Mm-hmm.
you finally maybe get confronted with asking yourself, who am I?
Right. And what kind? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And what kind of things do I like? Well, that's one of the things. Certainly, now experiences are far more important to me than the stuff that I own.
Yeah.
But yet, there's the irony is that I'm selling stuff that you don't need. I'm selling stuff that you want.
Yeah.
And but I definitely get the idea of I've never collected it because I've always wanted to what? I want to travel.
Yeah.
I want to see, and I want to have experiences. But now they're like, okay, well, having a kid is an experience, and having an environment to raise them in is an experience, and
Yeah.
we're buying our first home is an experience, and now let's make it with something that looks like us.
Nice. Yeah. Yeah.
My favorite designer ever was Jed Johnson,
Oh, okay.
Andy Warhol's late partner, and everything like his number one rule was eclectic is good.
Mhm.
Eclectic is who we are. I forget, one of you guys said something about the whole matchy thing that you would walk into and you're like, yes, this looks like page 3 of that catalog.
Yeah.
This looks like page 5. It's like, oh, this is
Yeah.
like, why don't you just call the house the Thomasville collection?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and so it shows no personality, and
Yeah.
hopefully you can find some stuff that's here. So that's a perfect example of Victorian.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it's snuck in.
But it's just way better than
Yeah.
what you usually would see. You want me to give you a truth bomb?
Sure.
The one thing that I like about your generation of designers better than the previous generation of designers is there was an element of, I'll just say it, kind of a scammy element about interior design that had where I would get a designer that would call and say, my client loves the picture of X. Can you please take the price tags off?
Yeah.
And we all knew what that meant.
Yeah.
Yeah, we all knew that we don't speak the price. He or she is going to sell it at a much higher price, and then they're going to come to us and try and cut us down to sell it at an even lower price. And that was like the hardest thing that for us in our industry is always trying to come up with great things for the design community. And one of the things that I didn't like about the previous generation is they were always trying to find a way where they were making at least as much money on it as you, or they weren't going to shop with you, or they weren't going to bring their clients to you. And I don't see that with this group of designers.
Well, we still fight against that reputation
Yeah,
every
Well,
day.
I think the internet has kept us honest.
I agree with that too.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Because I have a client that she back in the 80s had a designer here in town.
Yeah.
And she bought a Carver's Guild mirror from him, and she told me she paid like $6,000 for it, and I knew they still make that mirror, and I can still buy that wholesale for like $1,500.
Right.
And she goes, I think I paid $6,000, and I said, if you ever find the receipt for that, sure enough, she found the receipt, and he had charged her $6,000 for that mirror.
That's so like how do you sleep at night? It's like,
And that was in the 80s.
and
He got chased out of town. Now he's some big wig down in Scottsdale.
I remember having what I call the come to Jesus moment with this designer who was doing just that, and the one thing that we sat down and I said, here's the deal. Like, so now you've brought your client in and they like my shop. Thank you.
They get to come on their own.
And now they could get to come on their own. So sometimes the designer would want a kickback, and then but more often than not, they'd say, well, I'll just told the client that I'm going to buy it. And I knew that they were going to sell it for more. So it's like, okay, so it's like an old 18th century table. Let's find that then 6 months down the road, you're not working with them anymore. And we find out the table has woodworm. Who are they coming to? They're not coming to you, they're coming to me. If they want a refund from me, well, I didn't sell it to them for $2,500. I sold it to you for $800. And so I can't do that. I am pleased to say it's just become a non-issue. Like the design community seems to have figured out exactly what it is, how things are supposed to be working.
Yeah.
And so that was one. That was my only bitch about the design community, and it's not you guys.
Well, like I said, I think the internet's finally made us an honest career because people shop you.
Right. I never held it against anyone to see if there was a way to get it cheaper.
Sure.
That should be part of your job.
But not just to turn around and mark it up.
That's right.
3 times.
That's right. Because everybody is supposed to win, right? You can't just have this kind of predatory community like, ha ha ha, the suckers bought it for too much, or ha ha ha, he didn't know what he had and I made all the money on it. You know, it has to be a give and take, and that's why I want to see all your butts through the door multiple times in a year, not just that one transaction where one of us got stuck. I'm trying to stop adopting projects, like really, really good things, and if I only put 10 hours into it, then it'll be a great thing and we'll fix that and all of this. You know, and I've got stockpiles of stuff. You can ask my wife, I've got hundreds of chairs. Hundreds of chairs. That they just need a little bit of something. And doing this, I don't have time to deal with it. I would deal with all of that. So it's just funny that way. I adopt possibilities instead of, so I'm trying to stick with the finished product a little bit more.
Well, I think for us, it's like we see something and we go, oh, that could be a really cool this.
Yeah.
But you don't have a who that this should go to.
Right.
So if you don't stop buying, then you end up with a whole lot of, well, someday. Well, and also when you were speaking about, you know, kind of generational or a few decades back and with designers and things, I think even I was, you know, doing this as well. It was like we were just accessorizing clients' houses. I mean, like we'd go out and run down 23rd Avenue and here and there and just pick up and go and do.
Right.
And now I run into more, well, it has to I have to look at it and it has to have meaning for me.
Yes.
I might not have traveled and collected things, but I
Right.
still want to know that that item meant something.
Yes.
Man, does our time get sucked up trying to find that meant something to me.
Absolutely.
Accessories.
Well, partly-
But at the same time, it's sort of, it also though brings the house more human again. It
Yep.
brings it back to them.
Yep.
And kind of looking at pictures where you kind of go, oh, well, that's a Global Views accessory or that's a whatever. And it just filled up the shelf.
Yeah. Are
And,
you guys finding yourselves returning to like different styles of it that represented maybe a different era? Like, is anyone out there searching for blue and white so they can make a big old blue and white set like grandma's from 1972? And
I have one right now.
really,
I just find that people are a lot more open to the conversation of old stuff coming
Yeah.
into their
Yeah.
house.
yeah.
Whereas,
So before you get
5
rid of
years
grandma
ago,
stuff,
I-
maybe just everybody should have a grandma stuff sale.
Yeah.
And
Right.
invite all the people who are looking for things that have meaning to them
Yeah.
because
Well,
they don't have grandmas.
Are they interested in, because the part of the thing that dictated the greatest generation era of buying is that the clients themselves were very savvy in terms of the architectural history, the political history that was involved with it, and how to tell a good thing from a great thing or a good thing from a bad thing. I had a case in point, like I love blue and white, the double happiness ginger jars, good old ones. And there's just a few rules to know about them to be able to see if you've got a legitimate old one or a new one. Lady came in, and she had Twittered all night, I'm sure, to figure out exactly what she had. And she was positive these were all 19th century. And she laid them out. And I said, well, that one's not, that one's not, that one could be, but that's not their original lid. And just kind of went through it, as you do. And I always tell them, I'm not here to hurt your feelings. I'm here to tell you the truth. So I don't know who you bought these from, but here's the truth about these things. And I said, and I know that the pot, it was a little pot. I know that that's brand new. She goes, how can you tell at a glance? I'm like, because when you turn it upside down, it says Williams Sonoma
Yeah.
on it.
Yeah.
So out of all of that stuff,
Yeah.
and then I gave her a book I say, okay, if you're going to collect this stuff, you need to know this book.
Right.
And that's what the internet can do.
Right.
The one thing that's really funny, both good and bad, is that when people bring stuff in here to consign, they do their work. Most people don't blindly just hand you a bunch of stuff, but they've done work, and they've brought me printouts from Etsy or printouts from First Dibs, where a lot of those things are double, triple, quadruple inflated, and they're like, so I'd be happy with half that. I'm like, well, and I would too, but nobody's buying it.
What are we all?
Right.
So we tried then. So I have to send the consigners home with little things like go look it up on eBay and do a sold search on it and see what it sold for, see how many times it didn't sell. That's oftentimes the real clue as to what's popular, what's not, is that if you offer something up and it sells once, great. But if if the same thing's been offered up 500 times and it's sold once, how popular is it really?
Right.
And so you have to re-educate that way. Conversely, the customers come through the door, and if they can find that similar product anywhere a little bit cheaper, it's the first thing that they shove in straight in your face, and that's why they want a discount. And so you have to look for that kind of stuff. And you have to, and as much as I hate the internet for other things that it hasn't been helpful in, it's definitely one of the things that, as you said, it keeps us all honest, because we all have the same information, and it's constantly changing. People a generation ago thought everything was Japanese Amari. If you couldn't afford good Japanese Amari, that's why you bought Chinese. Now people are literally giving away the Japanese, the mediocre stuff, and they're looking for nothing but Chinese. I don't know if that's going to change. And so it's one of the things I'm keeping my eye on. And the best way to do it is just to listen to what people are asking for. So it's a Syrian shield, and we don't know the origin, we don't know the dates, but it has to be at least 400 years old. And that's rhino skin.
Whoa.
Wow, that is so cool.
Isn't that great?
And brass or bronze?
Silver.
Oh.
Yeah. So she said, should I shine it up? I'm like, absolutely not. Leave it just the way it is. But look at the way it was made.
Oh my gosh.
How interesting.
So those are the things that float my boat. I'm always I jokingly say I want to own every good thing in the city for 20 minutes and then I want to sell it. But these are the kinds of things that, oftentimes people say, I've had this and I bet you've never seen anyone. I haven't seen it like anything like it. I'm like, okay, okay, and it's always something I've seen a million of.
Right.
This is one I haven't seen before.
Yeah.
So
I mean, when you see something like this, you kind of go, there's a museum for that.
100%.
Yeah.
Like if it needs to go to a museum, we'll find one. But I think it's a really cool thing.
So what was the origin again? I missed that part.
It's Syrian,
Syrian, okay.
rhino skin, and then the best of this form, it seems to be around 400 years old. And so we're going to work on that. I know exactly the guy to call to sit and give me the facts on it. A lot of this is just like you develop a gut for it, an instinct for good. I always assume if it's among the best of what it is, it will sell still, no matter what.